YouTube Hook English. Have you ever been offered a second chance in life? But what if that chance comes with a terrifying secret? Would you dare to open the window? What stares back might not be yourself? And the truth hidden inside could change everything you thought you knew. I stood in front of the old house. A cold breeze blew through the wide open wooden window. The sound of leaves brushing against the glass made my heart race. The darkness inside the room seemed alive. I stepped forward slowly. The wooden floor creaked beneath my feet. The smell of old dust and dampness filled my nose. It felt as if the house was telling the story of someone who had disappeared. My eyes stopped at the old window. The glass reflected a faint light from the moon. I saw my own image, but it was not normal. It was as if another shadow was staring at me from the other side. My heart pounded faster. My cold hands began to tremble. I tried to look away, but curiosity pulled me closer. Everything around me was silent. Even my own breath seemed swallowed by the room. I reached out to touch the glass. Its coldness seeped through my hand. It felt like it was not just a window, but a boundary between my world and something that should not exist. Suddenly, the glass began to tremble slightly. The reflection moved on its own without being triggered. I stepped back, but the wooden floor groaned and cracked beneath me. The eyes in the reflection seemed to smile at me. A smile filled with a feeling I could not explain. It was not a warm smile. It was a terrifying invitation. I heard a soft whisper. It seemed to come from the other side of the window. Words I could not understand, yet their meaning was clear. It told me there was a second chance. But every chance came with a price I could never imagine. I took another step back. But my feet would not obey me. It was as if the floor itself had become a trap. A cold sweat ran down my back. The air in the room grew thicker, almost suffocating. Every breath I tried to take felt heavy, labored, as if the air itself resisted me. The whisper returned, louder now. Not just one voice, but many overlapping, weaving in and out of each other. They spoke in a language I did not know. Yet every word carved a sharp chill into my bones. My reflection no longer mirrored me. Its eyes glowed faintly in the dim moonlight, and the corners of its mouth curved into that impossible smile. I wanted to run. I tried to turn, but my legs felt rooted to the floor. The walls around me began to shift subtly, as if breathing. The wallpaper curled at the edges. The shadows in the corners stretched and twisted, crawling toward me like living things. I could hear my own heartbeat, pounding in my ears. Every thump seemed to echo in the empty room. And yet there was another sound beneath it. A slow, deliberate tapping, coming from the window. The same window I had approached cautiously just moments ago. I dared not look, but the tapping grew louder, sharper, insistent. Finally, I forced my gaze back to the glass. The reflection was gone. Instead, I saw movement behind the glass. A hand, pale and thin, pressed against the inside. The fingers dragged slowly along the surface, leaving no mark but a shadow that flickered unnaturally. I stepped back instinctively, but something invisible held me in place. The whispering voices now merged into a single, piercing sound. It was not words, but a demand, a pull, an invitation. The air vibrated around me, carrying a cold that made my teeth chatter. I could feel my soul tightening in my chest, as if the window was not just glass, but a portal. And something was trying to cross through. I heard a crack beneath my foot, louder this time. The floorboards gave way slightly, and I stumbled forward, arms flailing, only to stop inches from the window. The hand behind the glass froze. The shadow smiled wider, impossibly wide, and then, with terrifying speed, pressed its face against the glass. Its eyes were no longer human. They were black voids, sucking in every flicker of moonlight, every trace of warmth, every ounce of courage I had left. I could not look away. My body refused to move, my mind refused to scream. The whispers became words I could now understand. Second chance, come closer. The cold seeping from the window grew unbearable. It wrapped around me like chains, curling around my limbs, squeezing, binding. The shadow's lips moved in sync with the words, but no sound came from it. Only the voice inside my head, whispering, insistent, seductive. I remembered the stories my grandmother used to tell. Of spirits trapped between worlds. Of doors that should never be opened. Of chances offered, but with a cost too high to pay. And yet, I could not move. I could not resist the pull. The window was no longer a barrier. It was an invitation, a promise, a threat. Then it spoke again, in a voice that was not a voice. You have failed once, but I offer you another. The air shifted violently. A gust of wind slammed through the broken panes, rattling the old wooden frame. My hair whipped around my face, my lungs burned for air. The reflection returned, but it was wrong now. It was me, or something like me, but twisted, hollow, eyes black and lips curling into that same smile. It raised a hand, and I felt an invisible force pull me forward. I screamed in my mind, in my body, in a sound that did not escape my lips. The shadow's hand reached through the glass, not touching me, but enveloping me in a cold so deep, I thought my very soul was freezing. It whispered promises of redemption, of a second chance. And yet, every fiber of my being screamed danger. I tried to close my eyes. I tried to turn away. But the world tilted violently. I was no longer standing. I was floating, suspended in a void that stretched beyond the edges of the room. The whispering voices were all around me. Now laughing, now crying, now screaming. The shadow leaned closer, pressing its face against mine through the glass. I could see everything, my fears, my regrets, my failures, reflected in its void eyes. It reached further, and I felt it touch my very essence. Drawing out memories, hopes, and every secret I had buried. I wanted to resist, but it was stronger than my will. And the promise of the second chance glimmered like a cruel, tempting light. I thought of turning back, of running, of breaking free. But I could not. Something inside me ached for the chance it promised. For the opportunity to fix what I had lost. And yet, the price hovered in the air, invisible but heavy. The glass began to ripple as if it were water. The shadow's hand slipped inside, and I felt my chest tighten, my heart lurch. The room around me dissolved, replaced by darkness. I was no longer in the house. I was in the void with it. Trapped between worlds, suspended between fear and desire. You want another chance, it whispered, its voice echoing in my mind. You want to undo your mistakes. I could not speak. I could not move. I could only stare, paralyzed by a mixture of terror and longing. And then, I felt a pull, sudden, violent, irresistible. The world tilted, the shadow's smile widened beyond reason, and I realized that the second chance was not a gift. It was a trap, and I had walked willingly into it. The last thing I saw before everything went black was my own reflection, smiling back at me from the other side of the glass. Time returned slowly. The world around me snapped back into focus. I was no longer floating in the void, nor suspended in the shadow's grasp. I was standing in the old room. The cold had vanished, leaving only a lingering chill. The window before me looked ordinary again. The glass reflected only my own face, pale and trembling. I reached out a hand to touch it, half expecting another force to pull me in. But nothing came. The whispers had faded. The shadows in the corners of the room retreated. Yet the memory of their voices lingered in my mind. A subtle reminder that some doors, once opened, can never truly be closed. I stepped back slowly, feeling the wooden floor solid beneath my feet. The air smelled faintly of rain and dust, and the moonlight spilling through the window seemed softer now, as if forgiving me for my curiosity, or perhaps mocking me for my desire to try again. I knew I had been given a choice. A second chance, offered and then taken back. I had not crossed the final threshold. I had not surrendered completely. But I could feel the weight of the encounter, etched into my bones, a lesson I would carry forever. As I turned away from the window, the room seemed quieter, emptier. Yet I could not shake the feeling that it was watching me. Waiting, patient, for the next time I would approach. I closed the front door behind me. The night air wrapped around me, fresh and real. I breathed deeply, savoring the ordinary sounds of the world. The rustle of leaves, the distant hoot of an owl, even the gentle creak of my own footsteps. And though I walked away, I could not ignore the lingering thought in my mind. The window was still there. It would always be there. And if I ever returned, would I find redemption, or would I step into darkness from which there was no escape? For now, I chose life. And the second chance I had been offered, I let it go.